The escort ship left her on my clinic floor the way you'd leave a crate you didn't want to carry any further, and for a long moment none of the 3 men who'd flown her in would meet my eyes. I run the medical station at the edge of Kestrel's Reach, a border settlement that exists because the mining company needed somewhere to put people it didn't much care about. We get broken hands, radiation burns, the occasional gunshot wound from the traders who work the dry pass. We do not, as a rule, get alien royalty. She needs monitoring, the lead escort said, already backing toward the door. Court physicians recommended off-world air, quieter environment. Someone will collect her when her condition resolves. What condition? He didn't answer that. He set down a single case of her belongings, said something about the paperwork being filed with the company office, and left with the other 2 before I'd finished reading the transfer papers. The papers said almost nothing. No diagnosis, no treatment plan, just a name, Illyra Vantheth Sale, and a line at the bottom that made my stomach turn once I understood what condition inconsistent with succession law meant on a Vantheth medical form. I looked up. She was still sitting exactly where they'd set her, spine straight, hands folded, her unseeing eyes the pale gray of a sky before snow. She hadn't moved to feel for a wall or a chair arm the way a person new to a room usually does. She'd simply stopped, the way you stop when you already know no one is going to help you find your way. "They're not coming back for you," I said. I didn't see the sense in dressing it up, aren't they? Her jaw tightened, just slightly. "You read fast." I read plain paperwork. Somebody wrote a lie in very official handwriting. It isn't a lie. Blind lines don't inherit. Blind lines don't marry. A blind heir is a liability the court would rather quietly reassign than explain. She said it evenly, like she'd rehearsed saying it evenly, so many times that the wound underneath had gone smooth. "I'm not sick, doctor. I'm inconvenient." I didn't have a good answer for that the first night, so I didn't try to give her one. I showed her where the water was. I told her, out loud, every time I moved something in the room, because nobody had bothered to tell her the shape of the last 12 places she'd been dropped in. By the second day I'd strung a length of rope waist-high along the clinic's inside corridor, knotted at every doorway and turn, so she could walk it herself instead of waiting on someone's arm. She didn't ask me to. She found it with her fingers on the 3rd morning, went still, and asked who'd put it there. "Nobody's business but the walls," I said, and went back to restocking bandages, and let her work out on her own that she could walk to the mess hall and back without anyone's charity. The first proper conversation we had was an argument, if I'm honest. She asked me to stop narrating so much, said she'd survived 19 years at court without a running commentary, and didn't need one from a border medic either. I told her the difference was that everyone at court had been describing the room to make themselves useful to her family, and I was describing it because I wanted her to know where the second step down was before she found it with her shin. She didn't have an answer for that one. She just went quiet, and the quiet wasn't the same brittle quiet from that first afternoon. It had some give in it. It took her most of a week to stop flinching when I spoke before I touched anything of hers. It took her most of 2 before she told me her name wasn't just Illyra, that Vantheth royal children were given a second name at their naming day that only family used, and that nobody at court had used it since the fever that took her sight 4 years back. She told me the second name. I won't put it here. She trusted me with it the way you trust someone with the last unbroken thing you own, and I've kept it since. I learned the shape of her days. She liked to sit near the east window in the mornings because she could feel the sun move across the glass even if she couldn't see it, and she asked me, more than once, to describe what was actually out there. The rust-colored scrub, the 2 moons still hanging pale in a daytime sky, the ore trucks kicking up dust on the Ridge Road. I got better at it than I expected to. You learn to see a place twice as carefully when someone's borrowing your eyes for it. She started fixing things around the clinic before I noticed she was doing it. She reorganized the supply shelves by touch, and swore at me the first time I moved something back without telling her. She learned to tell the difference between my footsteps and the 2 mining foremen who came in for their weekly checkups, and she'd have the right chair pulled out before any of us said a word. On slow afternoons, she asked me to read her the outpost's shipping manifests, not because she cared about ore tonnage, but because she said it was the first paperwork in 4 years that had nothing to do with her. I read her every manifest that came through that spring. She corrected my pronunciation of the mining terms twice, and never let me forget it. 6 weeks in, a company transport radioed ahead. A Vantheth cutter inbound, official business, docking within the hour. I told her. She went very still, the way she had that first day, and said, "They've come to confirm I've expired quietly." That's the word they use. It isn't meant to sound as ugly as it does. "You're not expiring on my floor. You can't stop a royal writ, doctor." I can stop 3 men from walking into my clinic and telling a person who is very much alive that she's a line item that's been resolved. I said it plainer than I meant to, and something in her face, not quite a smile, something steadier than a smile, turned toward me anyway. The cutter's envoy was a court clerk with cold eyes, and a folder he clearly expected to close within minutes. He read the writ aloud. Succession review, confirmation of incapacity, transfer of the Van Theth blind line asset to a care annex on the home world, effective immediately. She's not an asset, I said. She's a patient under my care, and I'm not releasing her on the word of a folder. This is a matter of Van Theth law, not frontier medicine. Then it's a matter you can take up with the mining company's off-world counsel, because until they clear it, she doesn't leave this station, not today, not carried out like cargo. He looked at her. She lifted her chin, unseeing eyes level and unflinching, and said nothing at all. She didn't need to. I stood where I was, between the clerk and the chair she sat in, and I didn't move, and eventually a man with a folder and no actual authority beyond intimidation ran out of either. He left threatening escalation. I told him where the office was. That night she asked me, quietly, why I'd done it. Not the corridor rope, not the descriptions of the Ridge Road. The standing between her and a clerk with a writ that could have ended my clinic's contract entirely. Because nobody in that whole court ever asked you what you wanted, I said. I figured somebody should, once. And what if I want to go home? Then I'll fight to get you there on your terms, not theirs. She was quiet a long moment. Then she reached out. She'd learned the geography of the room well enough by then that she found my hand without searching for it, and said the thing I've turned over in my head every night since. I don't want to go home to be resolved. I want to stay somewhere I'm just a Lyra. I told her she already was. I told her she'd been a Lyra since the rope went up on the wall, since the 3rd morning she walked the corridor herself, since long before any clerk ever set foot in my clinic with a folder full of someone else's decision about her life. The escalation never came. Whatever counsel the company keeps on retainer apparently didn't care to pick a fight with a border world medic over a patient's legal status, and the Van Theth court, faced with the prospect of a very public inquiry into how it treats its own bloodline, quietly let the matter drop. She's still here. She knows the clinic better than I do now. Every knot in that rope, every chair, every step to the east window where the sun still finds her in the mornings. She asked me last week to stop describing the sunrise and just sit with her instead, and let it be enough that I was there. I did. It was. I've stopped waiting for anyone to come collect her. I don't think they will. I don't think, at this point, I'd let them.